Evening, everybody. Hope you're all okay, fit and well. It'll be my first time in this new chamber and this chair, so I'll have to keep an eye on all these buttons. Right, okay, so thanks for attending this meeting of the Governance Committee on Tuesday 30th of September 2025. My name's Councillor Ian Watkinson and I'm the chair of this committee. Before we start this evening, I would just like to outline some housekeeping rules. There are no planned fire alarms, so if it does sound, please leave via the emergency exits. And can I request that all mobile phones are kept on silent or switched off? Thank you. Members of the committee are attending in person here at the Civic Centre. Other members of council may also dial in to the meeting via Teams to observe and or participate in the meeting. Please note the meeting is live streamed on YouTube and the web link for this can be found on the council's website. Members on Teams are asked to keep their microphones on mute and only unmute when they wish to speak. And could I remind members to mute themselves once they've finished speaking to enable the meeting to proceed smoothly. Okay, so before we start, please may we have introductions around the room, and we'll start with councillors on the committee first, please.
Councillor Bretherton representing Walton Liddell West.
Councillor Gleeson, Count Green Gregson Lane.
Councillor Stevens, Banbury Bridge East.
David Shaw representing Howick Priory and Penwitham.
Margaret Smith representing New Longton and Hutton East.
Stuart Flynn, independent member.
Craig Ainsworth, independent member.
Hilary Bedford, Walton Adale East.
Thanks very much. And officers, please. It's just councillors on the committee, colleagues, yeah.
So, Chris Walmsley, Head of Street Scene and Waste.
Tasneem Safdar, Head of Legal and Procurement.
Jackie Murray, Senior Auditor.
Dawn Highton, Head of Audit and Risk.
Gareth Winstanley, Grant Thornton Audit Manager.
Claire Gornall, Democratic Services Officer.
Howard Norris, Interim Monitoring Officer.
Neil Holton, Director of Finance.
Okay, is that it? I think so. Thanks very much. Is there anybody dialed in? I should be able to see that, should I? No, don't think so. Not yet, no. There must be a glitch on YouTube because there'll be loads of people trying to get through. Okay, thanks very much. So we'll now commence with the agenda, and item number 1 is apologies.
Thank you, Chair. We've got apologies from Councillor. We've got apologies from Councillor Peter Gabbett, and Councillor Hilary Bedford is here in substitution. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And item number 2, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any interest to declare? No? Wonderful. Moves us on to item number 3, the minutes of the last meeting, which were held on 9th September. There's one amendment to those minutes. Craig Ainsworth gave apologies, so can we have that added to those minutes and those minutes amended, please, on that? And going back to the minutes, they were on page 3 of the agenda supplement. Does anyone have any comments at all on those minutes? Okay, so need a proposer and a seconder for those.
I'll propose them, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. And seconded by?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Councillor Shaw. All those in favour? Wonderful. Those minutes are approved. Which takes us on to item number 4, the External Auditor's Progress Report, September 25. Members are advised this item can be found on page 5 of the agenda. I'm going to invite Gareth to present his report.
Thank you, Chair. The report that you've got before you this evening, as you mentioned, is our update report. It follows the normal format that you've probably seen previously. The first few pages are progress on the audit, and I'll go through those in a little bit more detail. And then the latter pages are primarily for information only, various national reports that have come out in the sector since the last meeting. So perhaps if I draw your attention to pages 9 and 10 of the agenda pack, here we highlight that our financial statements audit is currently ongoing at the moment. Happy to report to members that that is progressing well. We've received good support from the Council's finance team in response to queries and requests for evidence. That's been received on a timely basis, and we've held or continue to hold regular sort of weekly feedback meetings with the key finance officers, where we can discuss any issues that are arising or any bottlenecks or just progress on the audit. So that's working well. As the financial statement audit currently stands, we're confident that we will be bringing our audit findings report to the next committee in November, where we will summarise the key issues coming out of the audit. On page 10 of the agenda pack, we also highlight there the other work that we do around looking at your value for money arrangements. We look at 3 theme areas there around financial standing, governance, and what we call the 3 E's: economy, efficiency and effectiveness. That work is ongoing at the moment, and again, we're proposing to bring our auditor's annual report to the next meeting, which will summarise the conclusions around that piece of work. Page 12 of the agenda pack just really focuses on the sort of proposed deliverables for the year. As members will recall, we've issued our audit plan earlier in the year in April, and our main reports will be coming to the next meeting, as I've just mentioned. I wasn't necessarily proposing to go through any further details within the report. Pages 13 onwards are, as I say, the national reports that have come out in the sector. So, but happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thanks very much, Gareth. Do we have any questions or comments for Gareth? No. Well, thanks very much, Gareth. This is items just for noting. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you. Which takes us on to item number 5, Internal Audit Plan, October 25 to March 26. This can be found on page 29 of the agenda, and Dawn is going to present this report for us.
Thank you, Chair. As you said, this is our internal audit plan for October to March 26. And the plan is the vehicle that sets out our programme of work for the next 6 months. Members will recall we did change to 2 6-monthly plans in a year, and that's so that we can be more flexible and take account into new and emerging risks in a timely manner, rather than waiting a longer period of time before an audit review can be undertaken. The report goes on to explain the role of management and internal audit, and I think it's important to note that ultimately it's up to the shared management team and directors and heads of services to implement a strong control environment. Our role is to provide assurance or otherwise on that environment. We produce the plan, we take into account, we have a detailed risk assessment of audit need, and the paragraph 9 sets out how what we take into consideration when compiling the risk assessment. So we look at new and emerging risks, like I've said. We look at the strategic priorities, the strategic risk register. We look for where we can take other forms of assurance from that we can rely on, so that we're not duplicating work. We consult every 6 months with directors, so we have that awareness of what's going on in the authority. And we also have taken into consideration the skills and knowledge of the audit team as well, and our professional judgment of where the risks are at the minute. So all that information is compiled, as I said. We put it into the risk assessment that identifies the highest areas of risk and where we should target our resource. That obviously has to be matched to our resource, the resource that is available. So it ultimately goes into the sausage machine, and we all have to make a view of which reviews we should be undertaking at what period of time to ensure that we can form the opinion at the end of the year. So as we said there, The successful delivery of the plan will result in 19 audit reports with assurance ratings, and as I said, that will be sufficient number for us to be able to form that opinion. We've also highlighted there that following the approval of the first 6-month plan, we immediately lost a member of the team. So what has actually happened is we are slightly behind, and that will be covered by Jackie when she does her report. We are slightly behind, but we now have additional resourcing and we have successfully recruited. So all it's done is delayed the production of the reviews. It's not deferred, it's just deferred one, and we can explain why. The plan is attached to Appendix A, but I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
Okay, thanks, Dawn. Questions or comments, please? Members of the committee. Councillor Smith.
I noted that you'd obviously lost a member of staff, and fortunately you've successfully recruited, and they're going to hopefully start at the beginning of next month. Well, tomorrow. Today. Right, okay, which is good. But it has mean obviously that the audits of some of them have to been put back. Will you manage to catch up, do you think, during the 6 months that we're covering this period?
Yes, we've also got the agreement from the senior management team to have temporary resource. So that backlog that we had is going to be filled between now and the end of January.
Thanks very much for that. Any other questions or comments, members on the committee? No, members not on the committee? No. Well, thank you very much, Dawn. We do need to approve this formally, so can I have a proposer and a seconder, please?
Yeah, proposed.
By Councillor Gleeson and seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favour? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Wonderful. Takes us on to item 6, Internal Audit Progress Report, and this can be found on page 35 of the agenda, and Jackie is going to present this report.
So this report provides you with information regarding the progress we've made to date on the internal audit plan that was approved in March, covering the period April to the end of September. So members are asked to note the position with regards to the internal audit plan, and we also need you to approve the deferral of one of the reviews that we've included. The Appendix A, we provided you with a detailed snapshot of our progress that we've made to date, so you can see that we have completed 3 reviews as well as our annual governance statement work, and we've provided you with more details of those individual reports like we usually do within appendices C and D. You can see there's a number of reviews that are in progress, and as Dawn explained, there's some reviews that we've not been able to commence at the moment. The number in progress isn't unusual for this time of year as well, with trying to schedule reviews around annual leave and everything, but as Dawn explained, we do intend to have everything completed by the end of January with the additional resource we've secured. With regards to the amendment to the audit plan, we have the review for key partnerships, which was originally included. We'd like to defer this to Q1 next year. We are at the moment undertaking a review of contract management. So some of the key elements of the key partnerships are actually going to be included within this contract management review. So some of the risks that we would have looked at are being actively covered at this point in time anyway. But yes, we would seek your full approval to undertake the key strategic partnership review in Q1 next year. The last appendix gives you information, the last appendix gives you information in relation to our follow-up reviews, where we've given you a bit of information about the number of actions that were originally agreed in relation to the number of actions that remain outstanding. I think from our point of view, this is quite a good news story, as you can see that the majority of audit actions continue to be completed by the date that they've originally provided. And those that remain outstanding, we have been provided with legitimate reasons for the delay, and we remain happy with the progress that's been made to date. I'm happy to take any questions you have regarding the progress report.
Thanks very much, Jackie. So, questions or comments from members on the committee? Councillor Brotherton.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And it was a very good report, as usual. You do a very good job, the internal auditors. I'm just particularly interested in the Lost to Call Family Centre. For example, the other projects like Jubilee Gardens, for example, they got a substantial rating because all the documents were in place, etc. But for the Lost to Call Family Centre, it appears that there was no construction phase plan in place, or no evidence of meetings, monitorings, etc. Why is that? What's the difference? Was it a different set of contractors, or how can we ended up in that situation where we didn't actually have a construction phase plan? I would have thought that was quite a normal routine for projects. Do you know the reasons behind why we didn't have all that information in place? Thank you.
I don't have the specifics information today, but that information would be in our working papers. Mostly with this review, the documentation for most of the projects were in place. It was more a record-keeping issue that came out. I think potentially this one was a smaller project, so some of the full spectrum of documentation wasn't there when we were looking for it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Members on the committee? Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. Similar question. The health and safety files appear not to be present in the two South Ribble reviews, and they are legal requirements under the regulations. They have to be available to the contractors and to the general workers throughout these projects. You say that this is a documentation filing type issue. Just for my benefit, there was a health and safety file, it just was not in the place that you required it to be, is that right?
Yes, the service had a set of filing protocols where the certain criteria documentation should have been. For this review, there was we did find what we were looking for. It just took a bit longer because they hadn't filed it where their own protocol dictated it should have been.
Thank you. Councillor Gleeson.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed on page 56, item 13, it talks about the Passport to People Management Programme. That's a mandatory programme, but the completion rates seem quite low. I wondered if there was a reason for that. I also noted later on in the report it says they haven't been reviewed for 18 months. Is there any reasons behind why it's not being completed, or any efforts being made to make sure it is completed, since it is mandatory?
Yeah, the Passport to People Management Programme was something that was launched shortly after COVID. So it was a kind of hybrid course, and it was supported with e-learning. I think with the flow of people leaving the organisation and new joining, the momentum just hasn't stayed there. And over the last sort of 12 to 18 months, they've focused on really raising the completion rates on the mandatory e-learning. So this programme in particular hasn't had the same focus. But with the relaunch of the People Strategy, I know that this is an area that they're looking to concentrate on.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Members on the committee? Members not on the committee? No? Well, thank you. Thank you, Jackie. So we're noting the position, but we need to vote on the deferral. So we need a proposer and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Gleeson and Councillor Stevens. respectively. So all those in favour on the committee, please. That's approved. Thanks very much. That takes us on to item 7 and the update on closed churchyards. So, Chris, you've got the graveyard shift. Over to you.
Thank you. So yeah, it's an update on the actions in relation to the audit on closed churchyards. I'll draw your attention to Appendix 1, which highlights all of the actions and some information there in terms of progress. Police report progressing well with this, just 2 of the 14 actions still left to complete. I think I've been able to accelerate some of the programme, so one of the key risks obviously is around the inspections, which we've just very recently completed across the 3 churchyards, and we're moving on to having the next phase in terms of what we do with those. And then obviously the 2 outstanding actions, one's due in October. We've just started to map that out, so this is the process for when we get any new closed churchyards, and then started work on the policy as well. So happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chris. Yeah, thanks for the report as well. Councillor Shaw.
Thanks, Chris. I'm curious about the register that you have for the burials. We saw from the subsidiary papers that went to council about an urgent reference, or an urgent decision of the cabinet, that in some places burials are 8 bodies deep in St Mary's, for example. I know the history, no, I don't know. I know some of the history of St Mary's. It's a very old site. It includes a castle in which there are burials in what used to be the Bailey. There are a lot of bodies in there one way or another. I know there are details and there are costs associated with bottoming all those out, so I'm just interested in what the details are that you're recording as part of the recovery process, because it seems to me impossible that you're going to be able to trace all of the families to be able to get their headstones into a safe condition, and that's a critical thing that we need.
Yeah, it has proven difficult, if I'm honest, in terms of that information. A lot of it sits with the diocese, and getting access to that is quite difficult. I mean, ultimately for us, in terms of the inspections, it's the grave owner that we need more than anything, so that when we've done the inspections and we identify any issues, we can attempt to make contact with them. You know, I suppose the people that are in the deceased that are interred in the graves, it would be helpful to have that. And at Chorley, where we've got a couple of cemeteries that we manage, obviously we've got more of that information. Well, the main thing for us is understanding who owns the grave, who has the responsibility for the headstone, so we can make that contact. It is an added complication with the closed churchyards, because we have some responsibilities, but we have to go through the parochial church council for it, and that's one of the things we're trying to work through now, how we can work with the church to contact people, so that we can, like you say, try and repair some of these headstones or make them safe.
If I can come back, I do sympathise with your situation. I do understand that the parochial council can sometimes take a bit of time. And I also understand the difficulty in tracing the owners of the families of the owners of the grave, because we have a similar situation with the current graveyard at Penwitham. That only goes back to the 60s, and yet tracking down some of the families, because once they've interred their relative, they may leave the area, and tracking them down, they're not exactly phoning up the town council to tell them where they've moved to. So I do sympathise, and I am grateful to you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This report and the previous report do concern me greatly. It has been going on for, the first mention here is 2021, We're now in 2025. And for quite a considerable amount of time, as I understand it, very little was done. Following on from the internal audit, I think it was January last year when the report came to this council, to this committee, we expressed our concerns then about a number of things. But one of the things that is particularly, to me, that stands out in this report and into the one in January is the lack of a budget. The lack of budget being put to this particular problem. And it is a problem, and I, like Councillor Shaw, I have the greatest sympathy with this council that he's actually handed over graveyards that are closed by various church organisations, and we then have to look after them. It's not just the gravestones which concern me as well, because some of the old gravestones are very, very large, as we know. Just to put a white marker on them and hope, and a sign up saying, just be careful of the white markers, worries the life out of me, it really does. So the fact that there is no budget, the fact that we not only have to look after the gravestones, but we have to look after the pathways, the horticultural, all of the barriers, the gates, everything, the whole aspect of it, must require quite a considerable budget. And the fact that in this report it says, when a problem is identified, we will find the budget from somewhere. Where are you going to find the budget from? Is it coming from... I'm asking you, but I presume it will eventually come around here. Because where is the money going to come from? We're talking about 90,000 as a minimum with the survey you've done in Chorley. You say you've got 2 graveyards in Chorley. There's 3 here. As I understand it, St Mary's in Leyland is not far off behind these 3. So is it time that we actually put a proper budget to this particular problem and started getting to the bottom of it and really making sure that we, as a committee, and councillors in general of this council can feel safe in the knowledge that you have the resources behind you that you need, because at the moment I can't see that.
I mean, I too am mindful that the Director of Finance is here. I think in terms of setting that budget, it's helpful now that we've completed the inspections and we can start to see what that looks like. Some of the things you've mentioned there are picked up as part of the regular work, so the maintenance, the grass cutting is part of our service budget. But you know, in my experience, when it comes to these things, we don't have any problems when we go through Neil to get the money. But I can see Neil's looking like he's ready to go.
I mean, Chris isn't wrong there in respect that it's quantifying how much it is before we can set a budget, because obviously until we know, we don't know what approval levels that would require, we don't know where we need to come to request that. So we could absolutely come down and request a budget and then come back and say it isn't sufficient, or come back and say it was far too much. Until those initial works have been done and Chris comes to me with a number, then we can kind of look then and go, we understand what this is. And I do appreciate what you're saying, but if it's a huge number, clearly that's a different conversation, a different approval route. It's understanding the kind of scale of that number. We'll not get it precise, but at the minute, I don't even have the boundaries to have that conversation until all the kind of inspections take place.
Sorry to disagree with you, Neil. I think there is here a concept you've got to put at some point. You've got, even if you have to stick your finger in the air and say it's going to cost £100,000 minimum. If we need more, we'll have to come back. But at some point, that money has got to be put into the budget with a title at the side of it that says that is what the purpose is for. Because if you don't, we will be in this situation 12 months from now. I mean, without going into any politics about these things, but I mean, there has been projects going around this council for some years now where a figure was put in and then the budget was expanded and expanded. So These things happen, we know that, but you've got to start somewhere. You've got to put something down on paper that says, within the next budget, we think, and it's a possibility, that we might need that amount of money. And if you don't, well, it can go back where it came from. Presumably, it's going to have to come out of reserves. I'm guessing here, but nobody's telling us. And at some point, I think we've got to nail our colours to the mast and say there's got to be a budget. Otherwise, we could be in serious trouble at some point.
And I don't disagree with a lot of what you've said. I think in terms of the timescales, I think there's a number of timescales there for Chris around December time where I'd hope that there would be, that would fit in with budget setting. But in respect of reserves, I think it does reference there are a number of reserves that we do have that are available for it. But yeah, we will need to put a number on it. But it was about seeing what the inspections threw up, because obviously if the inspections are a huge number need work, if the inspections are a few number that need work, that gives you some context at least for a number. But I don't disagree, we will have to put a budget towards that very soon.
I mean, some of these things down here, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I came back, they're actually June 2026, not December, they're June 2026. That's nearly a year away. This has just been, to me, it's just been going on far too long, and we really, really need now to make sure that the health and safety is adhered to in all respects, because there's things in here that haven't been properly addressed as regards the way some of the work has been done. And I am still very, very concerned about this. And it, to me, is a very serious problem we've got. And as I say, by the look of it, we're not going to be long off before we get another one that will come on stream, which is, I understand, St Mary's in Leyland, which has only got about 6 units left, last time I heard, which is a very big graveyard. And we will then multiply the problem. Sorry to go on, but I just feel very, very strongly about this.
That's absolutely fine. Well, we look forward to seeing that budget at the earliest possible time, and for all those works to be, so that Chris and the team have got the resource that they need to be able to get the jobs done swiftly. You mentioned December, but we'll, soon as possible. Any other questions or comments from members on the committee? Members not on the committee? Well, thanks very much, Chris. Thanks for that report. And we look forward to the next update. Which takes us on to item 8, which is the Strategic Risk Register. And Neil, it's back to you to deliver this report for us, please.
Yes, sir. Just in respect to this report, it is a report that we bring both to Cabinet and to Governance Committee, just reporting on the strategic risks facing the Council. So there are a few changes within the report this time. I'm not going to go through in too much detail the risk matrix and the scoring. I think people should be relatively familiar with how we score risk. That is detailed in point 8. In terms of the changes this time, paragraph 11 details the rewording of a risk, just to kind of make it reflect the kind of reality of where we're at now. Paragraph 12 also introduces a new risk around local government reorganisation. I think this is just reflecting how we can prepare for that, while we acknowledge that a lot of that is external, beyond our control as well. And then it also reflects some changes to risk scores. Again, a lot around the external environment, around IT. People will be fully aware of kind of incidents of IT affecting industry and broader. And I think it's just reflecting that we acknowledge that those risks have grown in recent times, so we are rating those risks higher. And equally the impact upon service delivery that the potential of those risks could be. So it is increasing the number of risks there. And then in paragraph 15, it details what we see as the highest risks to the Council. I think, again, a lot of these risks have a kind of common theme, that external influence in the kind of inherent risk score there, so particularly around poor financial sustainability, which obviously impacts myself significantly in how we forecast our budgets, but around that element of ICT, local government reorganisation, where potentially there are decisions made externally where we can try and prepare for it, but we don't fully have control over them. And I think that's the main points of the report. Happy to take questions.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. So, questions, comments? Councillor Gleeson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm trying to find what page I'm on here. It's 82, the high scoring risks, and there's one about the failure of ICT security and data protection, about cyber attacks. Is it a big issue for the council? Have we had some that we just don't know about? And has any data been leaked?
In respect of cyber security acts, I can't say for certain whether we definitely had them. Certainly we have recently in the senior leadership team had training in respect of cyber security and the acknowledgement that this is a constant threat to us. So we absolutely get phishing attempts, the kind of more routine stuff that people almost, it's common practice almost now to get those kind of requests. A more significant attack, no, but that doesn't mean that that couldn't happen tomorrow, the next day. We've seen major international businesses really suffer under this, so absolutely. And again, in respect of data breaches, not specifically in relation to cyber security, I think data breaches do happen occasionally, but generally they're more around other information data control issues rather than cyber security.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Shaw?
I don't know if I'm really, with due respect to Neil, whether I'm asking the right person, but thinking in terms of general terms of recovery following a cyber attack, do we know what our exposure is in terms of recovery? Is it a matter of, not in terms of the impact of the potential loss, but in terms of recovery back to a working position? Are we in a position to give an idea of how long we might be able to see a recovery if we had a big attack?
So to a certain extent, this also falls under Dawn's area in relation to business continuity, because we do discuss this in relation to the continuity of it. I think what's assisted us in recent years is the move to cloud-based systems. So that absolutely makes us more resilient in the sense that a lot of our systems are accessible not directly on the council's network, so there are other opportunities in business continuity terms to get a site back up and active, and we're not reliant on a single space as such, a single server to rely on our systems. There is a piece of work, and I think it's ongoing, and I'm looking at Dawn in respect of saying how quickly we could bring systems back up in response to that, but also a prioritisation. Some systems wouldn't need to be up in day one, some systems wouldn't need to be, and in respect of individual services, they have their own business continuity plans which reflect we would need our system back in a week, we would need our system back in 2, and that prioritisation goes on. Don't know if you want to have more.
Yeah, as Neil says, we are just this week we're going to undertake the business impact analysis. So what that means is we ask services to look at all their key systems and processes and score them, like you say, in terms of priority. That's then critiqued by SMT to make sure that we've got the right information about the order in which things would come back to life, so to speak. And in addition to that, we're also undertaking a desktop exercise early in the new year to have a look at if we were hit by a cyber attack, how would that look? So that's due to commence early next year as well. So we are very much aware of that this can happen, and we're taking all the steps. We're also part of a new assessment. It's called Cyber Assessment Framework, and that looks at our arrangements, and that's reported to the Corporate Governance Group at officer level as well. So that we are taking steps to make sure that we're prepared as best prepared as we can be.
Councillor Gleeson.
Thank you. Sorry, Dawn, just to carry on from that. Do you have, I work in IT and security and stuff, so I know about disaster recovery plans and things. Is there a plan to rehearse your disaster recovery plan? Because I know that's an essential thing to do to make sure it actually works.
You'll see on our audit plan, that's actually one of the areas we are going to be testing in Q4.
Great stuff. Okay. Anything else on this item? Members on the committee and members not on the committee? No? Well, thank you very much. It's just for noting. So thanks for that, Neil, and thanks for Dawn, your additions as well. So that takes us on to item 9, waivers of contract procedure rules update report. report on page 85 of the agenda, and Tasneem is going to present this report for us.
Thank you, Chair. So, members, this is a mid-year report which has been brought to you to provide a summary of the number of approved waivers of the contract procedure rules during the period March to August of this year. So, the report before you obviously outlines why the actual report is here. So it's a recommendation by external auditors that we provide yourselves with a report biannually in terms of the number of waivers that have been approved, and that's to ensure that there's transparency and accountability in respect of that. Members will note that waivers are granted in exceptional circumstances, and that's outlined within paragraphs 9 and 10 of the report, and there's specific reasons which have to be shown when those waivers are requested. In the main, they are for ensuring that there's a continuity of service, and the justification and reasoning is outlined within those paragraphs. In terms of the number of waivers, members will note that there have been 9 waivers which have been approved in the period already outlined, and the details of which can be found at paragraph 11. And in terms of the actual reasoning, I note that the last time that the actual report was brought before committee requested that the reasoning was actually added, so I've added a column in at the end there which outlines the reasons for the actual waiver approved. This report is for noting, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Do you know what, I can't see your name from all the way over there. I do apologise, independent member, whose name I've forgotten. That's awful, isn't it?
Okay.
I'll have to get an angle so I can see.
Just a suggestion, really. I think it's really helpful to have the reason column because you can see which of the 3 waiver reasons that has been identified for the justification, but maybe an explanation column as well, because actually the reason doesn't necessarily explain the circumstances of why the waiver was granted. So maybe an explanation column go into a bit of detail, because some of the reasons don't actually say very much. So it's just a suggestion, really, that might provide the committee with a bit more information.
Thank you. I'll take that on board.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. I can see on the machine now your name came up there, so I'm learning. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's more of a comment, and I agree with you. I think it does need a proper explanation. There's 1 or 2 things here that quite clearly you can understand, particularly in the UK SPF fund. We know that comes in late and everybody's got to rush around and get that sorted. We understand all that. But there are certain things like temporary security at the concierge contract at Jubilee Gardens. Well, surely to goodness, you must have known that temporary security was required, and to actually have to do it in a rush seems, well, bad planning, let's put it that way. To appoint a contractor to provide measures to plan the key council assets. Surely these are part of what you do as a plan going forward. I think that we should be very careful with these. They should be used in exceptional circumstances, not because suddenly somebody's forgotten to do something down the line. So I think a little bit more planning seems to me would be required. The other thing is, I don't know whether it's part of this or not, but I'm a little bit bemused by this South Ribble Leisure paper that it seems to be attached to these agenda papers, which tells me about the waiver of contract procedure rules update report. But it doesn't tell me anything. I just find it a bit... I've been scratching my head to find out why I've got it, for one thing. And while I'm on about South Ribble Leisure, if you will indulge me, Mr Chairman, but quite some time ago when Mr Norris first came to us, we mentioned that we were waiting for some paperwork about South Ribble Leisure and how it actually interacted with this committee. And about 2 committees ago, we discussed about the insurance arrangements for South Ribble Leisure and who paid for it and whether it was reimbursed. And that was supposed to be reported back to this committee. And I know Mr Norris has been here for 6 months and we're still awaiting any paperwork regarding South Ribble Leisure. And suddenly I get this and I get all excited and I think, oh, something's going to happen. And then I don't find anything else to go with it. So if Taz could help me, thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of your comments around contract management, I take on board everything that you're saying. We appreciate that obviously that, you know, there is a requirement for planning. So I am pleased to inform members that we will be commencing with a contract management tool, which is going to be linked into the actual financial system. So that's, you know, really good news in terms of contract management planning. So hopefully that will deal with a lot of these waiver issues potentially. In terms of the document that you're referring to, my apologies, not too sure why that's been included, but that shouldn't have been included because there's no links in respect of South Ribble Leisure around that. So I can only say that obviously that's just obviously an issue on the parts of them services, but yeah.
Yeah, if I can just come in about the leisure governance arrangements. So it was agreed we would review the leisure governance arrangements and how members fit into it, in particular this committee, in particular scrutiny as well. That review is ongoing and the report is going to the senior management team next week, and then after that hopefully we'll be able to bring some information back to the committee.
Just ask, does that include about the insurance as well?
About the recharges to the insurance.
How the whole thing worked, because there was a concern about whether we were who was properly insured, who was the main contractor, I suppose.
Well, I can answer that. The leisure companies are under the council's umbrella of insurance, so they are covered by the council, same insurers that the council has.
Tell me if we are then reimbursed by South Ribble Leisure.
Yes, I can, and we are.
Any other questions or comments? For Taz, do you prefer Tasneen or Taz? Taz, from Taz. Thanks very much. It'd be interesting to make a comparison with the same period from the previous year as to how many waivers and the value. Would that be something we might welcome having a little look at, and we could look at and monitor as we move forward? Is that all right?
That's fine, Chair. I can ensure that that's added into the report.
Thanks very much. No more questions or comments? Members not on the committee? Wonderful, that's the end of that item, and that brings us to the end of the meeting. So thank you very much for all the officer contributions, member contributions.